Have you ever been fined $150 for parking in your own driveway after a simple family celebration? What if that ridiculous pink slip came from a power-tripping HOA president who treats your neighborhood like her personal kingdom? And what happens when her million-dollar community loan application lands on your quiet banker's desk for review? Picture Pinecrest Meadows, the postcard-perfect suburb where every lawn is mowed to military precision, and every mailbox matches the approved neutral beige palette. On the surface it's all smiles and kids on bikes. Underneath it's a velvet dictatorship run by clipboards, tape measures, and the unshakable belief that your property isn't really yours. I'm Jake Harrison, 22, fresh out of college, and the guy who dared to throw a low-key graduation party for my little sister. Burgers on the grill, string lights swaying, a few relatives who stayed late. Their cars lined up neatly in our driveway like they belonged there, because they did. Nobody blocked the street. Just family in our own damn space. Saturday morning the sun felt too bright, the coffee too hot, and the pink slip under my windshield wiper felt like a slap. Driveway violation section 7.3. No more than 2 vehicles at any time. $150 fine. Vicky Lang, HOA president. I stood there listening to the engine tick and the distant lawnmower hum, wondering how many neighbors were already peeking through their blinds. I didn't rip it off, letting the rage simmer into something colder, smarter. Because I'd already been labeled the entitled millennial in the neighborhood Facebook group. Vicky's post the night before had been a masterpiece of passive-aggressive poison. Some residents seem to think rules are optional when it's convenient. Property values suffer when certain young people put fun above standards. No names, but the comments did the dirty work. That Harrison kid again? Kids these days have no respect. I was the villain before I even finished my coffee. Misunderstood, slandered, and suddenly everyone was watching me like I was the one lowering the tone of the whole street. So I stayed quiet. I smiled politely when neighbors asked if everything was okay, and I started watching right back. Inside, Mom read the ticket and muttered, "Our own driveway. After a family party." Dad, Thomas Harrison, senior loan officer at First National, took it with the same calm expression he uses when a loan file smells fishy. "Creative enforcement," he said softly. "Petty but creative. We called the HOA office." Vicky answered with that syrupy voice she reserves for the lesser residents. "Pinecrest Meadows HOA, Vicky Lang speaking. How may I help you today?" Dad explained, still courteous. "It was my daughter's graduation. Overnight guests. And for special occasions." Vicky's laugh was like wind chimes made of razor blades. "Oh, mister. Options are how chaos begins. If everyone parked however they pleased, we'd look like a used car lot. The fine is due in 10 days. Thank you for your cooperation in maintaining our beautiful community standards." Click. No goodbye. And the feeling that we'd just been politely mugged. I eased the blinds open. Blonde hair flawless, yoga pants that cost more than my first car, standing in her driveway with her phone angled toward our house like a sniper scope. She smiled when she caught me looking, the kind of smile that says, "I own this street and you're just renting." That was the moment I decided silence wasn't weakness. It was reconnaissance. She made. The tape measure she carried like a sidearm. The way she documented everything with her little sidekick Diane snapping photos. And the slow drip of new pink slips that began arriving like clockwork. Tuesday. Unapproved garden ornament, $50. Emily's third-grade ceramic gnome with the crooked smile, tucked beside the hydrangeas for years. Wednesday. Wind chimes exceed acceptable decibel levels, $60. Mom's copper and glass set that barely whispered in the breeze. Thursday. Garden hose not stored out of street view, $40. Friday brought the piece de resistance. American flag displayed at incorrect angle, $75. Apparently patriotic displays must follow exact HOA specs, or they're disrespecting the neighborhood aesthetic. I actually laughed out loud reading that one, dark bitter laughter. Here was Vicky, wrapping herself in the flag while fining us for how we hung it. Classic. By the end of the week we had $425 in citations fanned across the kitchen counter like losing poker cards. Neighbors started showing up at our door with their own pink slips clutched like evidence. Mr. Basketball hoop. Gone after 5 complaint-free years. The Garcias marigolds. Too cheerful, wrong color. Mrs. Wilson's bird feeders. Unsightly and vermin attracting. Even though the only vermin she attracted was Vicky herself. I listened to every story without saying much. I just nodded, took notes on my phone, and filmed Vicky's daily patrols from the upstairs window. She'd measure our grass in heels, tape snapping back and smacking her leg hard enough to make her wince, yet she'd plaster on that saintly smile for the camera like she was performing community service. The absurdity was almost funny if it wasn't happening to us. Almost. Dad never raised his voice. Like a banker arranging numbers in columns only he could see. One violation might be random, he said one night over leftover burgers. 5 in 5 days? That's a pattern. And patterns tell stories. That's when he dropped the bomb over his second cup of coffee. They're applying for a $1.2 million loan for the community center renovation. The file landed on my desk yesterday. The room went still. Mom's eyebrow shot up. Chess piece sliding into place. Vicky had no idea the quiet banker across the street was now holding her entire empire in his hands. And I, still the problem child in everyone's eyes, kept filming, kept watching, kept waiting for the right moment to hand Dad every piece of evidence he'd need. The harassment didn't stop. It got creative. Anonymous complaints to code enforcement about hazardous materials in our garage. Animal control showing up because someone reported our dog Max aggressively roaming. Spray paint on our fence at 2 a.m. HOA Trader in jagged letters. I caught it all on the motion cameras Dad quietly installed. Vicky and Diane on Mrs. A. Vicky keeping lookout while Diane sprayed. But I didn't rush to the police. Them, and smiled the same tight smile Vicky used on us. Because the real weapon wasn't anger. It was patience. Quietly running on that loan application were about to speak louder than any pink slip ever could. The neighborhood Facebook group became a battlefield. Vicky posted daily rants about certain families undermining community standards, always careful not to name us but always tagging enough photos that everyone knew. Comments split down the middle, half cheering her on like good little soldiers, half starting to question why enforcement had suddenly gone nuclear. I stayed out of it. Group chat with the affected neighbors. We swapped photos, dates, receipts. Every time Vicky paced our curb with her tape measure, I added another timestamp. Every time a new pink slip appeared, we logged it. The slandered kid everyone thought was just sulking was actually building a case file tighter than any HOA handbook. The emergency board meeting was called for the community center loan update. The room was packed, standing room only. Even the ancient coffee pot had been scrubbed for the occasion. Vicky sat at the head table in her pastel scarf, gavels tapping like she was conducting an orchestra of obedience. She opened with her usual polished speech about temporary accounting delays and malicious interference from a small group of residents. Then Dad stood, voice calm as ever. As a community member whose property is collateral on this loan, I'd like full disclosure on the fine revenue figures. Vicky's smile froze. Those are confidential. Dad simply quoted the bylaws back at her, article and section word for word. The room went dead quiet. He laid out the numbers. Over, total fines collected, about $5,000. Last 2 months alone, over $122,000. Yet the official statements showed only a fraction deposited. The rest? Missing. Reporting for a loan this size. Dad said mildly. Discrepancies this large trigger an audit. Murmurs turned to outright questions. Mrs. and held up her receipt. I paid $200 cash for hedge height. It's not in your ledger, Mr. Jackson boomed from the back. Mine either. I stepped forward then. Quiet, Jake, the misunderstood millennial, and slid my phone across the table with the security footage playing on loop. Diane spray painting our fence. Vicky standing watch. Vicky banged the gavel until it cracked. This meeting is adjourned. But nobody moved. Someone from the floor moved for a vote of no confidence. Seconded instantly. The applause started in the back and rolled forward like thunder. Vicky sat frozen, lipstick smile cracking, while the vote stripped her and her board of power on the spot. The next weeks were pure poetic justice. The bank froze the loan within hours. County auditors descended on the HOA books and found $122,000 in fines and assessments funneled into untraceable accounts, Vicky's personal slush fund. Anonymous complaints against us magically evaporated. The vandalism charges stuck. Police showed up at Vicky's door with warrants. She tried one last Facebook rant about victimization, but the comments had turned. Even her loyalists were gone. 2 months later, the for sale sign went up. Movers loaded her perfect furniture in silence while neighbors stood on their lawns and watched without a single wave. Diane left the next day. Jackson suspended all fines, reinstated the bird feeders and marigolds, and posted every budget online for everyone to see. The neighborhood exhaled. Flags fluttered at whatever angle people damn well pleased. And I, once the slandered troublemaker, walked past Vicky's empty house one evening and felt the air finally belonged to us. The real lesson here is simple. Tiny tyrants with clipboards only win when good people stay quiet. One patient banker, one stack of receipts, and one neighborhood that finally decided enough was enough turned a pink-slip dictatorship into a cautionary tale. Never let them rewrite the rules of your own home. Document everything, stand together, and watch the clipboard queens fall. Justice isn't loud, it's patient. And it always cashes the check.